Hello, everyone. Here we are, and we're going to do the book of Nahum. Now, Nahum gave a prophecy against Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria, which was a powerful nation and probably the strongest in the world, over Egypt even at one point. Assyria was the group who sent their war masters into Hezekiah's kingdom and mocked Hezekiah, if you remember, and said, "Don't listen to him, you people. Come with us. We'll give you your own vineyards, blah, blah, blah." And real arrogance. Who can defeat us? Nobody can beat the king of Assyria. And at that time, it was true. But God said, "You're coming down." So when Jonah went into Nineveh, they repented, okay? But it didn't stick. And they continued to lead people into idolatry. And we know that idolatry is a sticking point with the Lord. He does not tolerate it, all right? So Nahum's prophecy is against Nineveh. It is before the Babylonian captivity also. So here we go. Let's do Nahum 1. And they think that Nahum came from Capernaum out of Galilee, which is a town that Jesus Christ spent a lot of time in, okay? They don't really know. I believe it was Elkdod or Elk, I can't think of the name of it, but he was an Elkoshite, and they think that that might have been Capernaum. There's one other city they think it might be, but it's obscure to us. All right. Nahum 1, a prophecy concerning Nineveh. The book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord takes vengeance and is filled with wrath. So this is a good flow right out of Micah when he was talking about, this is, how I treat enemies. The Lord takes vengeance on his foes and vents his wrath against his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, but great in power. The Lord will not leave the guilty unpunished. We've heard that before. His way is in the whirlwind, and the storm and clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and dries it up. He makes all the rivers run dry. Bashan and Carmel wither, and the blossoms of Lebanon fade. The mountains quake before him, and the hills melt away. The earth trembles at his presence, the world and all who live in it. Who can withstand his indignation? Who can endure his fierce anger? His wrath is poured out like fire. The rocks are shattered before him. The Lord is good, a refuge in times of trouble. He cares for those who trust in him, but with an overwhelming flood, he'll make an end of Nineveh. He'll pursue his foes into the realm of darkness. Whatever they plot against the Lord, he'll bring to an end. Trouble won't come a second time. They'll be entangled among thorns and drunk from their wine. They'll be consumed like dry stubble. From you, Nineveh, has one come forth who plots evil against the Lord and devises wicked plans. This is what the Lord says. Although they have allies and are numerous, they'll be destroyed and pass away. Although I've afflicted you, Judah, I'll afflict you no more. Now I'll break their yoke from your neck and tear your shackles away. The Lord has given a command concerning you, Nineveh. You'll have no descendants to bear your name. I'll destroy the images and idols that are in the temple of your gods. I'll prepare your grave for your vial. Look, there on the mountains, the feet of one who brings good news, who proclaims peace. Celebrate your festivals, Judah, and fulfill your vows. No more will the wicked invade you. They will be completely destroyed. Nahum 2. An attacker advances against you, Nineveh. Guard the fortress, watch the road, brace yourselves, marshal all your strength. The Lord will restore the splendor of Jacob like the splendor of Israel, though destroyers have laid them waste and have ruined their vines. The shields of the soldiers are red, the warriors are clad in scarlet. The metal on the chariots flashes on the day they're made ready. The spears of juniper are brandished. The chariots storm through the streets, rushing back and forth through the squares. They look like flaming torches. They dart about like lightning. Nineveh summons her picked troops, yet they stumble on their way. They dash to the city wall. The protective shield is put in place. The river gates are thrown open and the palace collapses. It's decreed that Nineveh be exiled and carried away. Her female slaves moan like doves and beat on their breasts. Nineveh's like a pool whose water is draining away. Stop, stop, they cry, but no one turns back. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. The supply is endless, the wealth from all its treasures. She's pillaged, plundered, stripped. Hearts melt, knees give way, bodies tremble, every face grows pale. Where now is the lion's den, the place where they fed their young? Where the lion and lioness went, and the cubs with nothing to fear? The lion killed enough for his cubs and strangled the prey for his mate, filling his lairs with the kill and his dens with the prey. I'm against you, declares the Lord Almighty. I'll burn up your chariots in smoke, and the sword will devour your young lions. I'll leave you no prey on the earth. The voices of your messengers will no longer be heard. Nahum 3. Woe to the city of blood, full of lies, full of plunder, never without victims. The crack of whips, the clatter of wheels, galloping horses and jolting chariots, charging cavalry, flashing swords and glittering spears. Boy, can't you just see all this? Many casualties, piles of dead, bodies without number, people stumbling over the corpses, all because of the wanton lust of a prostitute. I believe he's likening Nineveh to a prostitute. Alluring, the mistress of sorceries who enslaved nations by her prostitution and peoples by her witchcraft. Yes, absolutely. He's calling Nineveh a prostitute and a witch. I'm against you, declares the Lord Almighty. I'll lift your skirts over your face. I will show the nations your nakedness and the kingdoms your shame. I will pelt you with filth. I will treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. This is a good description of hating evil. You know, I don't do these things, and neither do you, but boy, our lips sure curl when we see evil on display. You know, watching Satan prance around and enslave people and ruin people and scream at the righteous, it just makes your lip curl. I will treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. All who see you will flee from you and say, Nineveh's in ruins. Who will mourn for her? Where can I find anyone to comfort you? Are you better than Thebes, situated on the Nile, with water around her? The river was her defense, the waters her wall. Cush and Egypt were her boundless strength. Put and Libya were among her allies, yet she was taken captive and went into exile. Her infants were dashed to pieces at every street corner. Lots were cast for her nobles, and all her great men were put in chains. You too will become drunk. You'll go into hiding and seek refuge from the enemy. All your fortresses are like fig trees with their first ripe fruit when they're shaken. The figs fall into the mouth of the eater. Look at your troops. They're all weaklings. The gates of your land are wide open to your enemies. Fire has consumed the bars of your gates. Draw water for the siege. Strengthen your defenses. Work the clay. Tread the mortar. Repair the brickwork. There the fire will consume you. The sword will cut you down. They'll devour you like a swarm of locusts, multiply like grasshoppers, multiply like locusts. You've increased the number of your merchants till they're more numerous than the stars in the sky. But like locusts, they strip the land and then fly away. Your guard are like locusts, your officials like swarms of locusts. They settle in the walls on a cold day, but when the sun appears, they fly away and no one knows where. King of Assyria, your shepherds slumber, your nobles lie down to rest. Your people are scattered on the mountains with no one to gather them. Nothing can heal you. Your wound is fatal. All who hear the news about you clap their hands at your fall, for who has not felt your endless cruelty? Wow. All right, so let's go to Habbakuk and just start it, all right? Habbakuk also was before the Babylonian captivity, okay? So let's see who Habbakuk was, and let's go to Habbakuk 1. It says, the prophecy that Habbakuk the prophet received. How long, Lord, must I call for help? but you don't listen. Or cry out to you, violence, but you don't save. Why do you make me look at injustice? Oh, that's funny. Boy, that cry's been going on for a long time. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? How many of us have felt this way? Destruction and violence are before me. There's strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. And this says the Lord's answer. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I'm going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. Hallelujah. Let this be true, Lord, for this day. I'm raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They're feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swooping to devour. They all come intent on violence. Their hordes advance like a desert wind and gather prisoners like sand. They mock kings and scoff at rulers. They laugh at all fortified cities. By building earthen ramps, they capture them. Then they sweep past like the wind and go on. Guilty people whose own strength is their God, with a small g. Habbakuk's second complaint. Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You're my rock. Capital letters with rock, the letter R. So I'm going to read it again. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. Because remember, he was using the Babylonians to punish Jerusalem and Israel, Judah and Israel. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You can't tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You've made people like the fish in the sea, like the sea creatures that have no ruler. The wicked foe pulls all of them up with hooks. He catches them in his net. He gathers them up in his dragnet, and so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his dragnet. In other words, sort of like an idol, because it captures all the fish for him. For by his net he lives in luxury and enjoys the choicest food. Is he to keep on emptying his net, destroying nations without mercy? Boy, are we going through that today. Wow. All right, let's do Habbakuk 2. Wow. This is very timely. Habbakuk 2. I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I'll look to see what he'll say to me and what answer I am to give to this complaint. Now here's the Lord's answer. So Habbakuk is waiting for the answer, and here it is. Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets. This is why we know to write down anything we think is a revelation or a vision. Right here. Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Revelation talk again. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. See, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. So that's what we're called to do, is just be faithful and know that the Lord is going to set all the accounts right. Indeed, wine betrays him. He's arrogant, never at rest, because he's greedy as the grave. And like death, he's never satisfied. He gathers to himself all the nations and takes captive all the peoples. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying, woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion? How long must this go on? Will not your creditors suddenly arise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become their prey. Because you've plundered many nations, the peoples who are left will plunder you, for you've shed human blood. You've destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Woe to him who builds his house by unjust gain, setting his nest on high to escape the clutches of ruin. You've plotted the ruin of many people, shaming your own house and forfeiting your life. The stones of the wall will cry out, and the beams of the woodwork will echo it. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by injustice. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that the people's labor is only fuel for the fire, that the nations exhaust themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin till they're drunk, so that he can gaze on their naked bodies. Boy, the Lord doesn't miss any trick we have, does he? You'll be filled with shame instead of glory. Now it's your turn. Drink and let your nakedness be exposed. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover your glory. The violence you've done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you. God cares about those animals. Remember what he said to Jonah about Nineveh? He said, I've got 120,000 people there who don't know their left hand from their right. And animals. God loves the animals. You know, why, Jonah, should I not save them? The violence you've done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you, for you've shed human blood, and you've destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Of what value is an idol carved by a craftsman? Here we go with idols again. Or an image that teaches lies? For the one who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that can't speak. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to lifeless stone, wake up. Can it give guidance? It's covered with gold and silver. There's no breath in it. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Now, I guess if we think like a parent, it would be really an insult to see your child reject your parenthood and create a little stick figure in their room when you're not looking, and then you come in and they're bowing down before it, or they're pretending it's giving them orders and they're obeying them, and you're just trash to them. That would be hard. When you created that child, gave birth to that child, we don't know what it feels like to actually build and, create and build a human being, as the Lord has done with multi-millions of us. And to have us eschew him for a piece of wood or stone is awful. And I don't blame him. All right, I don't blame him for being angry. Let's look really quick and see where Habbakuk came from and who he was exactly. Where was Habbakuk born? All right, so Habbakuk, the burial place of Habbakuk is identified by Jewish tradition as a hillside in the Upper Galilee region of northern Israel. Okay. He may have been a professional prophet of the temple from the 7th century. That's interesting, a professional prophet. I wonder if he came from the school of prophets. Well, here's a better description. It's from the Encyclopedia Britannica. He was a prophet in the Hebrew Bible. He was the 8th of the 12 minor prophets and the author of the prophetic book that bears his name. Though little concrete biographical data is available, it appears he was active around the turn of the 6th century before Christ, where he offered an impassioned theological plea for God to defend the Israelite nation against the marauding Babylonians. The etymology of the name Habbakuk is not clear, though it is possibly related to Akkadian. The name Akkadian Habbakuk. It's very weirdly spelled. I'm not going to try to do it for you. It says the name of a fragrant plant, or the Hebrew root meaning embrace. Okay. He's largely an enigmatic figure, so he's kind of mysterious, discernible only through the oblique hints offered by the text itself. In terms of his station, many scholars suggest he was a temple prophet, a representative of the organized Hebrew cult of the day. That's interesting. But yet he had this vision. Habbakuk is one of the few literary prophets who's actually introduced as prophet in the book's title. This probably means he was an institutionalized cultic prophet. This fits in with the remarks scattered, throughout the book. For example, that Habbakuk went up to a watchtower. Remember, it says he went up on a rampart or something to wait for God's reply. And the question is, was that watchtower in the temple? In order to keep a lookout for a vision, we just read that, and that Yahweh, God, answered him there, or that his whole body trembled during his ecstatic reception of the word. In addition, it goes on to something. Likewise, the Jewish Encyclopedia argues that he was traditionally seen as a Levite, and we know they were appointed to be the priests until they blew it, and then the Lord, I think, appointed someone else. On the strength of the postscript, blah, 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 which indicates that he owned instruments. Only a Levite was authorized to use an instrument to accompany his songs in the temple. A certain insight into the character of the prophet can be gleaned from the contents of the book itself. He had an obvious passion for his homeland and his evident poetical abilities. He is unique among the prophets in that he openly questions the wisdom of God. For instance, the first part of the first chapter where he's saying, why do you make me look at injustice? I'm telling you, I've been like Habbakuk lately, just going, why do I have to look at all this? The prophet is crying out against injustice. The confrontational stance is relatively unique amongst these minor prophets and would seem to imply either tremendous confidence in his relationship with the divine or a galling amount of hubris. I think he has a deep relationship with God. Finally, it must be noted that an Iranian biographical tradition exists which claims that Habbakuk was a guardian of the Temple of Solomon who was captured by the Babylonians and detained in their prison for some years. After being freed by Cyrus the Great, he's thought to have traveled to Ecbatana, where he remained until his death. I think that's all. I think that's all we need to know. I love you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll pick it up. We'll finish Habbakuk. See you then. Good night.